Let's take a look now at how the markets are performing on this Thursday afternoon. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange looks to be winning back some gains, even though global stock market indices were lower, triggered in part by the rising COVID-19 cases in parts of the world. The rand is marginally weaker against the dollar ahead of the U.S. data, which is expected this week. Maurice Madiba, who is the CEO at Cloud Atlas, now joins us to help us dissect the latest in our business stories. Mr. Madiba, good to have you with us this afternoon. Let's recap on how the markets are performing so far today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tammy. So, the markets are a little bit concerned at this moment with respect to the rise in COVID cases around the world. We are also expecting some data about inflation and the oil price as OPEC is looking to see how oil is reacting to the situation. But ultimately, it seems that this rise in COVID cases has warranted some more lockdowns. And the decisions to be made by government at this point is how long those lockdowns would last, as that might impede or potentially enhance investor sentiments during this time.
Now, Eskom is seeking $10 billion for its shift from coal. They want to do this by 2050. How possible is this?
So it's a realistic achievement by the CEO, Andre, or expectation of the SOE. A lot of the utility companies are being pressured to move into green energy. South Africa is fortunate in the fact that we do have some research houses in the form of CSIR and others who can enable the road to adopting clean energy in a much quicker fashion than if we did not have them in place. Eskom has been doing well, if I can say, relatively recently, not just because we haven't had any blackouts or load shedding, but also because they've reduced their debt from the 450 billion rand where it was to just over 400 billion. So from a cash flow perspective, that's quite positive and can really allow them to start to access and be more of an attractive asset for investors for them to raise this $10 billion that they're looking for.
Now, we see adapted shareholders voting in favor of Volaris's 1.1 billion rand offer, with the company expected to delist. If you could take us through developments on that front.
Yeah, so Volaris is a Canadian company really looking at getting a few fintech businesses into their fold. And so this came as a bit of a surprise to shareholders, and I think they would have voted in favor of it given the fact that there was a slightly just under 10% increase on that bid. So originally they offered R6.50 and now they've offered R7 for the particular shares that are outstanding. But it is no surprise in this world where you have places like Silicon Valley where there's a lot of venture capital, a lot of money that's being made available to fund financial technology businesses, fintech businesses as they're more commonly known. And so this is probably a move for that by some of these Canadian companies that are looking to bolster their presence on the African continent in respect to fintech.
Now, ABSA's Purchasing Managers Index moved lower for a third consecutive month and is now back in line with February's level. Help us make sense of that data and where this then puts factory activity at this stage.
So, it's in slight contradiction to what we had seen come out of our current account numbers, where the current account deficit had reduced, and South Africa is expectedly exporting more. But a lot of those exporting goods remain from mining and your precious metals where we've exported. So your manufacturing has come down. A lot of that's driven by this uncertainty that is brought on us by COVID and the lockdowns that are taking place, even though we are seeing some more healthy export markets in the form of the USA and the Europe zone as they enter into their summer months and import a few things from markets like ours in South Africa. But these lockdowns have really then dampened that sentiment at this point and led this PMI to come in a little bit lower than expected. So we'll have to see with the coupled weaker rand, which is generally good for the exporting segment of the sector. But what remains under pressure on our side is the consumer demand locally. And so manufacturing is generally expected to be under pressure going into the third quarter of the year.
Well, we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. Mr. Madiba, thank you very much for your time. He is CEO of Atlas Capital.